All right, question number 21. This is another punctuation question, so just take the two words, not the punctuation, just the words, and go into the texts. During the English neoclassical period, many writers imitated, they copied the epic poetry and satires, the humorous parodies of ancient Greece and Rome. Okay. They were not the first in England to adopt, to take on. Adopt means kind of to take on or use the literary modes of classical antiquity, however. Antiquity is like the old days. So we need antiquity, however. Let's keep going. Some of the most prominent figures of the early Renaissance period were also influenced by ancient Greek and Roman literature. Do you see multiple sentences here? You do? I hope you do. I can see one sentence here, and I can see one sentence here. I'm color coding them for you. If you want me to mark subjects and verbs, which are always very helpful to do, there you go. Between subjects and verbs, we have many prepositional phrases, it looks like. We'll focus on that in another class. It's very important at this point just to notice there are two full sentences. Because there are two full sentences, that means we have to connect them with one of the three things we talked about in a previous question. We can have a period, we can have a semicolon, or we can have comma and, or but, or some other fanboy, some other connecting transition word. So how can we not connect them? Well, no matter what you do, you can't connect it with a comma. Comma is not going to fix it. If you put one comma in the middle, or if you put 2 commas or 3 commas or 10 commas, it's not going to fix the problem. A is gone. 2 commas, 10 commas, not going to fix the problem. B is gone. Semicolon could fix the issue. So we have legitimate choices in C and D. These are legit. So between C and D, this is where the SAT tries to trick you. Now I have to have a different lesson here. I hope that you've taken notes. If you've not taken notes, please do so. And I'm going to erase this. I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to tell you about however. What will I tell you about however? Let me think. I'm going to tell you a couple things here. I'm going to start out by telling you that there are 2 really key patterns with however. You could put however at the beginning of a sentence, just like I'm doing here. That's the normal pattern. You usually put a word like however, therefore, in addition, furthermore. These sentence transitions, they're called conjunctive adverbs. You put them at the beginning, kind of an introducer. Alternatively, now this is something that you may or may not know, you could put them not at the beginning. Don't write that down. Alternatively, you could put them at the end of a sentence. So you could put it right here. However, so instead of saying it's raining, however, we're going outside on a picnic, you can say it's raining, we're going on a picnic, however, at the end of a sentence. And you could also say, here's a third pattern. There's 3 patterns to tell you today. You could say, however, between the subject and the verb. Between the subject and the verb, right there. So there's 3 patterns. You could say at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. It's raining. We, however, are going outside on a picnic. It goes right there. In my lesson on punctuation, I explained that there are 3 positions, 3 optional slots in a sentence. There's an opener slot, like an introduction slot. I call it the opener slot. There is a closer slot, and there is a interrupter slot. So that is 3 different slots, and I'm using however in each of those slots. Kind of complicated. We'll talk about that in a different lesson. For now, there's 3 patterns to however. They're all perfectly the same. And so that's a pretty important point to note too. They're all exactly the same. So if you ever see however at the end of a sentence, you could just imagine it's at the beginning. Just kind of move it in your mind to the beginning of the sentence. It's the same thing. We're going on a picnic, however. However, we're going on a picnic. We, however, going on a picnic. It's all the same thing. So what's the difference between C and D? Well, both of them are pretty legit patterns. C is putting however at the end of a sentence. And D is putting however at the beginning of a sentence. And I say it's at the beginning of a sentence because I see a semicolon. And so the semicolon is pretty much the same as a period, right? Pretty much the same as a period. So that's why I say it's at the beginning of the sentence. And so to determine whether it should go at the beginning of a sentence or at the end of a sentence, I should understand the logic of the passage. So you need to know where the contrast is. I'm going to read this passage one more time and show you where the contrast is. These writers, during the neoclassical period, imitated the work of ancient Greek and Roman poets. But, however, they were not the first. That's where the contrast is. Those guys did it, but they were not the first. However, they were not the first, so it should be they were not the first to adopt it. However, my answer, comma, however. Therefore, C is the answer. If you picked D, then you're putting a period here, however, and now you are trying to make a contrast here. They were not the first. However, some of the most prominent figures were also influenced. And that's the same point. Both of those sentences are just saying that these people were not the first and that these people from the earlier Renaissance were also influenced in the same way. So the answer cannot be D. It's C. And if you think this is interesting and exciting, which I do, more on this in the punctuation lesson. We get to really good specifics on this point. Very cool. This is not truly, I mean, this is grammar, but this is actually syntax, sentence patterns. Very fun to learn. We better move on to the next question.